Hello, BookTube. I was at the gym today with my fellow bro-tuber, the Active Mind. We had already overdosed on our gray market North Korean pre-workout, so we were seeing sounds and hearing butterflies. And we'd already hit our macros for the day. And we were at the gym hitting PRs, racking the weights, slamming down the weights on the floor in a way that makes the whole place jump, even though the management has told us many times not to do that, because screw them, they're low T. And we were finished, and we were detoxing in the sauna, and he said, dude, I'm thinking about tagging you in a video today. And I said, well, dude, you can if you want. And he said, yeah, I'm thinking about tagging you in the book murderer tag. I said, fine, we killed it today. And then we finished up, and we went to Wawa for horrible greasy food that completely counteracted everything that we had just done in the gym. So it was a normal BroTube type weightlifting day. And he did indeed end up tagging me in the book murderer tag. I'll leave a link to his video down below. This is a fascinating tag. This is all about how we treat our books. And the first prompt is, what are your thoughts on spine breaking? And I, of course, don't like spine breaking since it effectively ruins the book. If you break the spine of a paperback, for instance, you are one thin step away from having two pieces. And then you're involved in taping it or twining it tight or whatever. The Active Mind mentions in his video that he has seen some Instagram or TikTok feeds where people will intentionally do that. Where in their opinion, that's the way you break in a book, is to crack the spine right away. I didn't know that. If that exists out there as a widespread practice, I did not know it. And I'm glad that I didn't, because that's barbaric. I don't intentionally break the spine on any of my books. Of course, the key word there being intentionally, because paperbacks, I'm rough on my things. I try not to be, but I am, especially books, because when it comes to a book, I might be nice and minding my manners. I might be all Emily Post in the first 10 pages, but after that, I am utterly consumed in the book and grappling it. Literally, physically grappling it. So I tend to break spines. I try real hard not to. A lot of the paperbacks that I have here have broken spines, but quite a few of them, a number I'm proud of, don't. I dislike the tiny amount of mental drag it takes on the process of reading and getting lost in the book, which is what we all want to do, to even think about that. I don't like the tiny mental drag represented by even thinking about whether or not I'm going to break the spine. And we'll be getting back to that. But prompt number 2 is, do you use bookmarks or do you dog-ear pages? And I do both. And I know that is going to excommunicate me in a lot of readers' minds, because a lot of readers out there do not like dog-earing pages at all. Of course, I like it for the same reason that I like doggerel verse, because it's got dog right there in the word. But also because if I am reading through a book and I encounter, I'm reading through the book and I encounter the author making a big mistake, stepping in cow doo-doo. Oh, that was dumb. You really shouldn't have said that. I know that your sources don't back that up. But I'm going to have to research it on my own because, of course, if you're a modern nonfiction book, you're not going to bother to effing include a bibliography. But I know that's a mistake. Well, I'm reading at a fairly fast clip, and I am getting the book done in one sitting. There's no way, if I'm on a bed, once upon a time, this was ironclad, because once upon a time, I would hit that moment, and I usually hit that moment in any given book in the first 10 pages, and then just keep doing it throughout the book. Once upon a time, if I hit that moment in a book, you could guarantee that I was literally buried in beagles. It wasn't just that I had one beagle sleeping over there on a rug on the floor. My boys never slept on the floor. They slept on me. And I don't mean on the bed. I mean on me. I would have one draped here. I would have one on the chest. I would have one on the belly. I'd have several all draped along my legs. There was no possibility of moving. There was no possibility of, I had better find a well-mannered slip of paper or a tasseled bookmark to mark that place. Now, There's no chance of moving at all. So when you're a reviewer, at the very least, I don't know about other people, it's so convenient to just turn down the page. There. And usually I have a writing implement so I can make a note of what on that page was of interest to me, although a lot of times not. And that ends up being fun. If I'm in a real hurry, or if I'm just absorbedly reading, I don't even want to stop to get a pencil. And I turn down the page of a certain page in a book and come back to it the next day or a week later and try to figure out what was it. Always I remember. Always it jumps out at me. I never get to a dog-eared page and think, okay, why did I dog-ear this page? It always jumps back at me why I wanted to do it. Well, when it comes to older books or keeper books that I really want to keep, do I have another example? Yeah, I have another example here. When it comes to a book that I really want to keep, well, then I put a bookmark in it, and I like the kind of bookmark with a tassel or something attached to it, just because it makes it easier for me to find the space. If a naked bookmark, so to speak, one without a tassel or anything, shivvies down the spine of the book, you're no good. You have to go looking for it, which kind of defeats the purpose. So if it's something older than that, yeah, I will sometimes use a bookmark, and I like the ones with tassels. Although even in that case, I like such bookmarks. I think they look neat. I like all the variety of them, but I don't often actually use them, and the reason is the same, because I read enormously fast, and I read for an enormous amount of time every day. So when it comes to it, regardless of which practice, bookmark or what, naked bookmark or one with a tassel, I still don't usually have a need to bookmark. Usually a bookmark is what somebody uses because they have to stop reading that book. They want to literally mark the place where they are, and they want to, because they have to turn into a drooling blob of protoplasm on their bed for 9 hours, or I don't know, they have to go and support a loved one at some social event. I have no idea. These things are a mystery to me. And I almost never need a bookmark for that reason. I don't know. It's an old atavistic reflex to just have them, but I can't remember the last time I used a bookmark for that reason. I just like them. I like having a tasseled bookmark in every book that is a definite keeper in my library. But with new books, I'm assuming that any new book is not a keeper. There, the dog-earing of pages is purely utilitarian. I don't want to have to get up and get a strip of paper to do that with. And these things, the galley copy, I'm not going to keep it anyway. It's just going to go out the window. I use both bookmarks and dog-earing for drastically different things, though, and neither one, I think, for the real purpose that most people use them for. I use dog-earing mainly as a way of signposting a vulnerability in a book, of fresh meat from the author. Of course, I don't use much of either of them anymore for, again, a reason that we'll be getting back to. So we'll move on to the third prompt, page tearing or ripping. Now here, I do not understand this at all. Not whatsoever. Brock was the same way in his video, just did not understand. I didn't know anything about the TikTok trend of people cracking spines to break in a book. I had no idea that happened. But does anybody actually tear or rip the pages of a book? I would hate to think that was a sub-fad out there. I can't imagine a reason why I would. Not in a million years. The closest offense that I can come up with is something that will predate a lot of you. Most of you don't remember actually using printed phone books, much less using printed phone books that were attached by chains to a shelf in an actual phone booth. Most of you don't remember that at all, but once upon a time, that was the way that you would communicate with anyone on the go. If you weren't at home, you didn't have a phone on you. No one had phones on them. Instead, if you needed to call someone from somewhere other than your kitchen wall, you used a phone book. And if you needed to call someone whose number you had not memorized or written down or didn't know ahead of time, you had to use the phone book. There was a very bad habit that ran through the the society of America at the time. Some people, they got it from movies. Of course, all bad habits are taken from movies, but some people thought it was really kind of cool to flip through a soggy old phone book that was dangling from a shelf in a phone booth, find the number that you want, and tear out the page. And that always infuriated me. And I confess, I saw it more in movies and TV than I ever did in real life. I saw it once in real life, and it made me blood boil. I vividly remember where it was. I remember when it was, and I took a step in the direction of the person who did it, who was unknown, just blissfully walking down the street. And then I had a rare moment of clarity where I thought, what are you thinking? You going to pound on someone because they tore a page out of a phone book? No. No, but it is still barbaric. It deserves some sort of punishment. I can't imagine doing it. I can't imagine why you would do that. So we'll just move on to the next problem, which is writing in books. And here, I confess, I have written in books an enormous amount in my life. I do it compulsively. I always have. I have caused howls of outrage in certain circles on this channel in the past by admitting that this is even true for library books. I never write in books with pen. I know a fairly high-profile book reviewer or fiction reviewer who the whole of his career has annotated books in pen. Galley copies, so for the most part. So maybe excusable because, again, no one's going to keep a galley copy. No one's going to find it later on. But sometimes finished copies too. And he did it long before he was famous. Long before he had a high-profile gig. So, and I don't know why. I don't know why you would do that. In his video, Brock says, well, yeah, annotating in pen feels better. It feels more natural. I've never understood that. That certainly doesn't feel better for me. I love writing with pencil. And when I annotate a book, I annotate it exclusively in pencil. And also respectfully. I try not to block the line with an annotation. I try to be fairly neat. I'm, again, not the neatest person in the world, but I try to be fairly neat. And I try to make my annotations interesting to whoever comes behind me. Because I have also found those annotations for people who I came after. And I really enjoyed them, provided they're not dumb. If somebody annotates a line, puts a check next to it, what good does that do me? It does me no good at all. And I would argue it probably does the original annotator no good either. If I'm going to annotate something, if I underline a passage and I don't put any marginal comment, it's because I think the passage stands on its own. It's just memorable. Commonplace type thing. But if I annotate for any other reason, and I very often do, I give the reason in the margins. And I do that a lot. And it's a reflex by now. I'm sure that I couldn't control it, but it's also mighty inconvenient. Especially from a professional point of view, from a critical point of view, because I'm wanting to know. I'm reading some, I don't even know, a biography of Bismarck, and I'm remembering that I made a series of marginal notes in Crankshaw's biography of Bismarck 50 years ago. And I dig out my old paperback. And I have to stand there. First of all, I have to go and get it. And again, I'm covered in dogs. Right now, no. Right now I have a tiny little dog. A guinea pig-sized dog. She still doesn't like me moving her. But at least I'm not covered in dogs where the moving would be a federal offense. Or covered in an 85-pound gassy, stupid basset hound where the moving is impossible. It wouldn't matter if she liked it or not. I can't move her. Even so, I first have to move her. Then I have to get up. I have to find the book. And I have to stand there. Oh, was it here? Oh, was it there? Oh, was it there? That's mighty inconvenient. I do it as a matter of reflex when I'm reading, especially the older books, like the 100 older books that I got when David Murphy was here. But it's just a reflex. I really ought to school myself out of it. Because those annotations are awkward. You're relegated to how much space is available in the margin, and also inconvenient because you have to go and find them. But that is not true in all cases. And we'll be getting to that. The next prompt is ripping covers and bookbinding. and this is weird. I don't remember the last time I met a genuine book person who did this. I should point out here, I'm sure that the original creator of this tag pointed it out, and I'm sure that a lot of you already know it, that once upon a time, that was the mark of a legitimate book person. It seems inconceivable now, but once upon a time, that's what you did. You had your books bound. And you had a guy who would do that, and a shop that would do that, and you got the pleasure of looking at your books on your shelf with your binding. But I've only had that done once in my life, and it was an absolute crap show. I can't blame the whole industry for the one person, but I went to a specialist who did that sort of thing, and he was weird and really idiosyncratic. I should have walked right out the door. I should have known better. A weird person is not going to be a person who's going to do reliable work, usually. But I had an old copy of a book that I had found. The binding on it was falling apart, and I wanted to try a bookbinder. And he did everything wrong. He did literally everything wrong. I told him exactly what I wanted him to do. Take the front and back covers off this, the spine off this, bind it in maroon. Don't annotate it in any way. Don't put anything on it. I already know what the book is. I only have one book that's bound like this. I don't need anything on the spine. Just do that. And he said, eye bugging out like here, live growth over here. That should be no problem at all. And he quoted me a price, and he quoted me a time. He was off by about 700% on both. He was nowhere near ready at the time that he said the book he hadn't even touched it. It was still sitting on his table. And also, he kept raising the price. And at one point said, I've got this bill to pay. Like I care. You quoted me both. And when he was done, he had written something, he had carved or burned or whatever you do, something into the spine, which I didn't want. And on top of that, it was wrong. The thing he carved into the spine was wrong. So by that point, I'd had enough. I just paid him and went. But I'd never do it again. So ripping covers and bookbinding, I wouldn't do this. I don't know all that many people who do. I mean, the reason at the time was that you would just get this floppy, basically a bound galley pages. You would get just this floppy thing from a bookseller in St. Paul's or wherever, and you weren't expected to read it in that form. You weren't expected to consult it, to go back to it in that form. Instead, you had to get it bound in order to make it a usable book. But publishers for 150 years have been printing usable books right away. You don't need to do anything to them, even giving them their own cover art. It's true, it's standardized. You don't get to change it for yourself, but there are all sorts of ways to personalize books. Any of you out there who aren't antiquarian fanatics, just ordinary book people, would you ever think about having a hardcover? Have the bindings of one of your hardcovers pulled off and rebound by a professional? Would you ever think about doing that so that all of your books, that used to be the visual appeal, is that all your books would look exactly the same on the shelf, as opposed to my shelves here where there's no order at all. Would you even think about doing that? I don't know. I don't know that I would think about doing that. And then the next prompt is to tag people, of course, because this is a BookTube tag about bookish habits. I tag everybody who hasn't done this. I want to hear, these are the kinds of questions that I would ask you anyway if you came over for wine and calzones. But before we go, I wanted to show you the thing that we're coming back to. We kept coming back to in all of those questions. And it's this. This is an iPad mini. There are many like it, but this one is mine. It is light as a feather. It is as light as a Kindle. It has 256 gigs of storage, meaning it can hold 20 Libraries of Congress in terms of books. And let's go through the prompts, shall we? What are your thoughts on spine breaking? It is not possible to break a spine of an ebook. Bookmarking or dog-earing pages. I can put all the bookmarks in an ebook that I want, and they count as dog ears, but I can also remove them with a touch, and so can anyone else. They're not creasing anything. They leave no mark behind. I can do that infinitely. Prompt number 3, page tearing or ripping. It's not possible to do. There are no pages here, and so no massive footprint of carbon extraction, no forest put to the sides. There are no pages of any kind, to rip or otherwise. Number 4, writing in books. I can write as much as I want in any of the books on this device. As much as I want. A whole book, if I wanted to. In the open note page that I press and hold to write an annotation in a book, I could write a whole book if I wanted to. I could write several of them on every text. And I don't have to go hunting for them. If I needed to go hunting for them, it would be infinitely easy. I would simply go to the book file and ask it to show me all the notes. No text, just the notes. That's pretty easy. That's usually all I would ever need. But if I need more than that, well, I can certainly have more than that, because I can also export my notes to a Word program or to my inbox and organize them there under the heading of the book, under subject headings, ancient volcanic eruptions, whatnot, and search them that way, and keep them that way, and transfer them that way. No more hunting around the shelves, looking through one book after another for that one piece of marginalia that I made about that one line in one biography of Keats. No need to do that at all anymore. I can write to my heart's content and send that writing to where I'm going to need it, without moving at all, without disturbing a single dog. And then the last one, ripping covers and book binding, well, I can't do it because I don't have any technical ability. But it is entirely possible to make the outward appearance of your ebooks look however you like. You can make them all uniform, swap out the covers, anything like that. It's entirely possible to do. I can't do it. I wish I could. I wish I could put covers on my ebooks. And so the point that I'm trying to make about the book murderer tag is that this is a better mousetrap. The one thing that it might undercut, that might be undercut by it, is a subject that Brock brings up in his version of this tag, which is the sacred reverence of the object of the book itself. Not an ebook, but the book itself. If you feel that, well, then you might think nothing's going to replace it and it's really important, so you'll duct tape your books and you'll rubber band your books and whatnot. And you won't have much truck with something like this, except utilitarian purposes. Like if you're not in love with a long string of murder mysteries, but you want them all and you have read them all and you might read them all again, we get them all as ebooks, but you won't worry about it. Whereas if you get one of Brock's Dude Bro lunatics, one of his syphilitic Dude Bro authors, then he's going to want, down the line, a big, heavy, embossed, leather-bound edition of that. And I want to posit something here as to the reason why people do that, and the antidote to it. The reason why people do that is because they're afraid of dying. The reason why people do that is because every book person thinks they'll never be parted from their library. Or that if they are parted from their library will not be broken up. And they think the more I pour this loving, personalized attention into these books, the more special the physical object is, well, the more permanent the physical object is, and by extension, the reader of that object. And the antidote to that is to be in the sale lot of the Brattle Bookshop on a day when one of the people at the Brattle is throwing away the books in the back of the lot. That'll cure you of your illusions about the sacredness of the physical book pretty quick. It certainly did me. You start at the carts at the street are $5. Another row of carts, $5. Another row of carts, $5. The walls on either side, $5. Another row of carts, $5. Then you get to carts that are $3 each. And a couple more of those that are $3 each. And all the way at the back of the lot, you get $1 each. But that's not as far back as the lot goes. Right behind that is a chain-link fence area, and behind that chain-link fence is a dumpster. And it's going to the dump. I hate the feeling, I hate the sound of the books going into that dumpster. But, as I've said many times before, including to many of you when we've been at the Brattle, the books had every chance in the world. Purely bookish people were going to that lot every day by the dozens or even hundreds. They were looking, poring over every one of those books. They saw that book at $5. Didn't get it. Nobody got it. Not even me. They saw it again at $3. Nobody got it. Not even me. They saw it again at $1. $1. And they didn't get it. That book had every chance. It had a lot more chances than a book does at a retail bookstore. A lot more. And it didn't do it. It could not sell for even $1. So it's gone. And I have seen books make that horrible march to the back of the lot that came from the lovingly curated book collections of people I knew who dreaded that very thing. They didn't live to see it, but they dreaded that it would happen. That cures you of your whole sacredness of the physical book thing pretty quick, no matter what you think. Brock says in his video that some people just consider the book to be a conduit. The book is just a conduit for the contents and for getting the contents into your brain where you can then change them yourself. And that therefore it doesn't matter. A cheap paperback, a run-of-the-mill hardcover, an ebook. I want to point out that they're all conduits, no matter what. I agree that humans, by their very nature, are prone to investing sentimentality in inanimate objects. I have been married to Deb many times. And I do it myself, but that is irrational. And there's nothing that lays bare the irrationality of that better than this device, or any device like this. Because suddenly you have the book, and suddenly you have the ability to be utterly transported into the book and by the book. I vividly remember the first time I read an ebook for real, as opposed to just dabbling at these weird things that I didn't think would catch on. The first time I read an ebook for real, I thought, well, this is interesting in a way. I would never own one of these devices, but it's interesting in a way. But I'm always going to be reminded of the technology. The technology is going to mediate between me and the magic of the book. That is always going to happen. I'm never going to forget that I'm reading it on a miracle of technology. And I did forget. Right away. Well and truly, I forgot. I was utterly swept away by what I was reading. It was only when I was done that I remembered the mechanism by which I was reading it. If that's true, and that is true, any of you who do any e-reading will know that, then why not go at least mostly, I know this is odd for me to say after a week of buying books, but why not go a lot with books that can't be murdered, as opposed to these things, which is made of paper. It can get bugs in it. It can burn. It can it can confuse you. It can be misprinted. It can misplace your annotations. It can misplace your bookmarks, etc., etc. I just wanted to point this out because despite the fact that I spent a whole week buying a whole bunch of physical books, I do an enormous amount of reading on this device. Enormous. New and old. A good publicist will write to you about a book and say, hey, I've got this thing coming up. Might it be of interest? And if I say yes, they will definitely put me on a list for the printed book. But they'll also send the ebook. And the process has been slow, but it continues that I am doing more and more of that on the sheer convenience of this thing. So there you go. That is the book murderer tag. I want you all to do this. I want you all to tell me about your horrible bad habits when it comes to books. And if any of you can explain to me that book page ripping and tearing bit, I'd love to know. I'd love to know what that means. But right now, it's time for the active mind and I to take our ice bath, followed by some cupping. Not cuddling, cupping. If you don't believe that a totally worthless piece of quack 8th century medicine has any validity in the present day, look it up on YouTube and on Wikipedia, and you will see that it is a huge fad. And all the YouTube bro-tube weightlifters who do the ice plunges, even though it's horrible for your body, also do cupping. They're very proud of the marks that it leaves behind for days on end. No medical value whatsoever. It's pure medieval quackery. They do it, and if they do it, then Brock and I are going to do it. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.